The Sweare, also known as the Swedes, were a significant North Germanic tribe that flourished in the region of Svealand in central Sweden during the Vendel period. Their tribal center, Gamla Uppsala, emerged as a focal point for both political governance and religious practice, serving as a nexus for the tribe's leadership and cultural identity. The origin of the name Sweare is believed to derive from the Proto-Indo-European root sve, meaning one's own, which reflects the tribe's emphasis on kinship and communal ties. The earliest recorded mention of the Sweare is attributed to the Roman historian Tacitus, who in his work Germania provided an account around 98 AD. He described the Sueones, a term that is understood to refer to the Sweare, as a powerful and imposing tribe. Tacitus noted their impressive naval capabilities, highlighting that they possessed ships with prows at both ends, allowing them to maneuver swiftly and effectively. He also remarked upon their society's inclination towards wealth accumulation and the absolute authority of their kings. Interestingly, he mentioned that common men did not usually bear arms, which were instead guarded by slaves, indicating a structured social hierarchy within the tribe. Following Tacitus, the subsequent historical narrative concerning the Sweare remains relatively scarce until the 6th century, when Jordanes, in his work Getica, referred to them as the Sueans and Suetidae. These references paint a picture of a tribe that was not only notable for its impressive physical stature, described as the tallest among other tribes, but also for its contribution to regional trade. The Sueans were recognized as notable suppliers of black fox skins to the Roman marketplace, reflecting economic ties beyond their immediate territory. The description of the Suetidae aligns with what is inferred to be the same group, further solidifying their identity in the ancient world. Norse sagas, particularly those compiled and recounted by Snorri Sturluson, provide a rich tapestry of lore detailing the lineage of the Sweare and their connection to the gods, especially the fertility one Freyr. These legends imbued the royal families with an aura of divinity, as kings often claimed descent from Freyr and participated in significant religious festivals and sacrifices at Uppsala. The centrality of Gamla Uppsala in this cult of Åsar illustrates the intertwining of political authority and religious duty, where the king often served not just as a ruler but also as a priest, facilitating offerings and rituals designed to ensure prosperity and success for the tribe. Political organization among the Sweare was complex. The region's chieftains began to coalesce into a more defined system, and the significance of lineage and dynastic rule became increasingly pronounced. The royal estates, known as the Uppsala Öd, provided essential resources that financed the king and his court, signifying the importance of land ownership and wealth in maintaining power. Over time, as the Sweare expanded their influence and territory, their political dominion began to include surrounding regions, gradually leading to the emergence of a more unified Swedish identity. Integral to this political framework was the assembly or thing, which operated as a governing body where free men could voice their opinions and participate in decision-making. The system represented a unique blend of popular principles whereby the king was not an absolute ruler, but rather a leader who had to consider the advice and consensus of the establishment. During times of peace, the royal authority was often moderated by the collective will of the assembly. However, in warfare, loyalty to the king became paramount, reinforcing the social system. Religiously, the Sweare adhered to a complex pantheon of gods and practices typical of the broader Norse tradition. With the Æsir as central figures of worship, the tribe engaged in various rituals, including blots, sacrificial offerings made to garner the favor of the gods. These rituals were often conducted by the king in his priestly capacity, underscoring the interplay between governance and spirituality. The construction of sacred spaces in Gamla Uppsala, including temples and altars, provided a physical manifestation of their faith, where communal gatherings for worship and celebration reinforced social cohesion and collective identity. Literary sources from this era, particularly the early sagas, offer insights into the complex relationships between the Sweare and neighboring groups, including the Geats. Descriptions of feuds and political maneuvers are chronicled, revealing an intricate tapestry of alliances, enmities, and cultural exchanges. The epic poem Beowulf, composed between the 8th and 11th centuries, notably refers to wars involving Swedish kings such as Ongentheow, Onthere, Onela, and Eadgils, leading a glimpse into the social and political dynamics at play. The references to the Scyldings serve to illustrate not only the power of these royal figures, but also the legendary status they attained through oral traditions. Additionally, early geographical accounts, such as those reportedly made by Onthere of Hålogaland and Wulfstan, provide external perspectives on Svealand and its surrounding regions, emphasizing the recognition of the Sweare's territorial claims and influence. These narratives often highlight the broader scope of their interactions with other tribes and kingdoms, reinforcing the Sweare's prominence as a central player in the tapestry of early Scandinavian history. The Geats were a prominent North Germanic tribe that inhabited the region of Götaland, which corresponds to modern southern Sweden, from antiquity until the late Middle Ages. This tribe was one of the main progenitor groups of contemporary Swedes, alongside the tribes of the Swedes, the Sweare, and the Goths, the Gutar. The historical and cultural legacy of the Geats is still evident in Swedish geography and language, notably in the names of the provinces Västergötland, West Gotland, and Östergötland, East Gotland. Additionally, the dialects spoken in areas that were once inhabited by Geats form a distinct group known as Gotamon. The name Geat, the Old English Geatas, the Old Norse Gautar, and Swedish Götar, is believed to derive from the Proto-Germanic word Gautats, where concepts of pouring and flowing are significant, potentially referring to both the act of agricultural planting, pouring seed, and to the region's rivers. The possible connections of the name to geographical features such as watercourses have been debated, although the predominant interpretation emphasizes fertility and agricultural symbolism. The earliest known references to the Geats are found in writings by the Roman geographer Ptolemy in the 2nd century AD, who referred to them as the Gutai. This is corroborated by later historical accounts from Jordanes, who describes the Geats in relation to both their martial prowess and their participation in various tribal movements across Scandinavia and beyond. By the 6th century, the Geats were described by Procopius, who highlighted their reputation as a bold, warlike nation. They appear in key early medieval sources, including the Old English epic poem Beowulf, which narrates the exploit of its titular hero, a Geatish prince. The poem indicates that the Geats had close ties with both Danes and the Swedes, contributing to the complex intertribal dynamics of the era. In addition to their martial ethos, the Geats were engaged in settlements far beyond their native territories. During the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain, many North Germanic people migrated as a result of the tribal warfare that afflicted Scandinavia. Place names like Gate in England reflect Geatish settlements that often aligned with significant Roman roads and neighboring Visigothic and Jutish enclaves. It is believed that various tribes, including the Geats, influenced the cultural landscape of regions such as Yorkshire and East Anglia. The political landscape in Scandinavia underwent significant changes during the early medieval period. By the 6th century, multiple kingdoms existed on the Scandinavian peninsula, each consisting of various tribes, including the Geats. Over the subsequent centuries, the consolidation of power began to reduce these kingdoms to larger entities, with the Geats being one of the more influential tribes during this transformation. Despite the indications of Geatish independence in the records from the 10th century, their absence in later historical texts may suggest their gradual subsumation into the Swedish kingdom, particularly as a political centralization accelerated in the region. By the 11th and 12th centuries, the distinction between Geats and Swedes began to blur, as the latter claimed dominion over territories that included Gotland and its people. However, the cultural identity of the Geats persisted into the medieval period, characterized by significant religious and political divisions. Notably, the Geats tended to adopt Christianity more readily than their Swedish counterparts, which led to friction between pagan and Christian factions within the emerging kingdom. The tensions culminated during the reign of King Inge the Elder, who found refuge in Västra Gotland after being deposed by a rival ruler favoring Norse paganism. The 11th century was crucial for dynastic developments in Sweden, particularly with the extinction of the House of Munso, which allowed for Geatish participation in the newly emerging dynastic politics of the kingdom. Stenkill, a king from the Geatish lineage, was elected and played an instrumental role in establishing Sweden as a Christian kingdom. However, internal divisions continued, underscored by laws and customs that reflected the unique status of the Geats within the broader kingdom. Saxo Grammaticus, a Danish chronicler from the 12th century, noted that the Geats had limited influence over the election of kings, suggesting a political marginalization compared to the Swedes. This perception was reinforced in legal texts such as the Westergothic law, which mandated that the election of kings rest with the Swedes. This tension between Geatish and Swedish identities further compounded under the reign of various Swedish kings, often leading to civil unrest and war among clans and tribes. Over time, the Geats became increasingly significant within Swedish national claims to greatness, especially due to their historical association with the gods. The association was bolstered by claims made during the Council of Basel in the 15th century, where Swedish delegates argued for their identity as the true gods over Spanish claims stemming from the Visigoths. This cultural movement, referred to as Gothicism, emphasizes the historical significance of Geats in Sweden's formative narrative. By the 15th century and onwards, the merging of Geats and Swedes into a cohesive national identity became more pronounced, aided by political unification efforts and regional governance models that emphasized cooperation between the provinces. The systemic changes imposed by the Kalmar Union facilitated a further integration of identities, leading to a unified perception of Swedish nationality, which by the early 20th century had largely overshadowed distinct regional identities. In contemporary society, the legacy of the Geats is primarily preserved in cultural references and place names. The modern Swedish monarchy historically retained the title King of the Swedish Goths and Wends until the reforms of 1973, though the term Geat has since diminished in significance. However, cultural pride persists in the regions of Västra Gotland and Östra Gotland, where inhabitants occasionally refer to themselves as Västgötar, West Geats, and Östgötar, East Geats. The Yngling Dynasty, regarded as one of the most prestigious and foundational royal families in early Scandinavian history, has captured the imagination of historians, poets, and scholars for centuries. Rooted in both mythological and historical narratives, the Ynglings originated in Sweden and later extended their influence into Norway, establishing a legacy that would tether them to the cultural fabric of late Viking Age Europe and beyond. Their story is preserved primarily in Old Norse texts such as the Ynglingatal, Islendingabok, Ynglingasaga, and referenced within the epic poem Beowulf, offering a multifaceted glimpse into the dynasty's political, military, religious, and literary significance. According to these texts, the Ynglings claimed descent from the gods, asserting their lineage from Frey, a deity associated with fertility, prosperity, and fair weather, as well as Njörður, a god revered for his connections to the sea, wind, and wealth. This divine ancestry was crucial as it not only legitimized their rule, but also elevated their status among neighboring tribes and kingdoms, during a time when belief in the supernatural was woven into the very fabric of leadership. The name Yngling directly translates to descendant of Yngvi, linking them to the divine and framing their role as mediators between the human and the divine realms. The mythical framework of the Ynglings posits that they were among the first rulers of Sweden, with tales recounting how they settled the land and established governance systems reflected of their noble lineage. As the dynasty flourished, they were believed to have dominated from the sacred grounds of Uppsala, the central site for pagan rituals that underscored their divine claims. The Ynglinga saga, attributed to Snorri Sturluson, details how the Ynglings were succeeded by various kings throughout generations. The narrative is rich with themes of power, duty, and the sometimes tumultuous relationship between these rulers and their subjects, presenting a blend of heroic virtues and tragic flaws. The early political landscape of Sweden, as detailed in the Ynglingatal and other sources, describes a system wherein the Ynglings ruled as kings with divine sanction. Kings, such as Agne, operated with a social framework that included both kinship ties and tributary relationships. This era was characterized by the establishment of hierarchical dominance, where the Ynglings often divided their realms among their sons or appointed relatives, leading to a sprouting of regional powers directly influenced by the royal court at Uppsala. Such internal divisions could give rise to new power systems, as seen with the emergence of figures like Alrek and Eirik, who commanded their own territories while retaining connections to the overarching authority of the Ynglings. As they expanded their reach into Norway, the Ynglings remained acutely conscious of the need to project strength not only through military but also by fostering alliances among the regional chieftains. Their migration and influence led to the establishment of numerous settlements, a phenomenon that was both testament to their leadership capability and the embodiment of the cultural exchanges that enriched Scandinavian society. The text known as Versu Norger Bygdist describes how the Norse territories were founded, linking the Ynglings to the very origins of Norwegian lineage and asserting their role in shaping the political contours of the region. Militarily, the Ynglings were depicted as warriors who engaged in numerous military undertakings, waging campaigns to protect their territories and expand their influence. The legendary Battle of Bravolla stands out in the saga literature, representing one of the most renowned military engagements of the time. This battle is described as a significant clash between the armies of the Ynglings and the forces led by the legendary Sigurd Ring, an event that underscored the martial prowess expected of any king and was emblematic of the larger wars that simmered between the emergent kingdoms of Scandinavia. The Ynglings, viewing themselves as defenders of their lands and faith, were expected to embody the virtues of valor and resilience, qualities celebrated in both poetry and oral accounts. As the Yngling legacy unfolded, their religious duties were often intertwined with their political responsibilities. As kings who descended from the gods, it was expected that they would uphold the rituals and strengthen the bonds between their people and the divine. The Ynglings were pivotal in conducting sacrifices and rites in honor of the gods, particularly at Uppsala, where the sacred traditions and the worship deities like Frey were central to social cohesion and cultural identity. This interplay between kingship and religious obligations served to reinforce the dynastic authority of the Ynglings, as they were seen not only as rulers but as spiritual leaders whose actions directly influenced the fortune of their realms. Culturally, the Ynglings' impact resonated through the literature and oral traditions that enveloped Scandinavian society. The mention of the Ynglings within the poem Beowulf, where they are referred to as Wulfings, highlights their significance across cultural boundaries, reiterating their stature as a noble family while establishing a connection between Anglo-Saxon and Norse traditions. The dual references to the Ynglings and Wulfings suggest a shared historical narrative that extends beyond geographical markers, weaving together a mythic framework that encompassed various tribes in the region. The authors of the text, whether skalds or scopes, crafted their narratives with an understanding that audiences would have a preconceived knowledge of these legendary kings. The layering of their stories would invoke pride and a sense of identity, as the heroic exploit of the Ynglings were chronicled alongside themes of loyalty, bravery, and fate. The Ynglingatal serves as a cornerstone in this poetic tradition where myth and genealogy converge to to establish a framework for understanding both the past and the future legacies of the Scandinavian rulers. Furthermore, the connections between the Ynglings and other historical dynasties, such as the fair hair one in Norway, served as a testament to the enduring legacy of the Ynglings. This lineage claimed to be a branch of the Ynglings, sustaining their story in the annals of Scandinavian history. Saxo Grammaticus also contributes to this narrative, exposing the dynamic complexities of familiar trees where figures such as Eric the Victorious are intertwined with the lineage of the Ynglings, thereby reinforcing the importance of ancestry in legitimizing authority and rights to rule. The construction of genealogical accounts like those found in the Æþelingas further complicates the narrative surrounding the Ynglings. These genealogies present a comprehensive lineage that not only traces the Ynglings' ties to divine ancestry, but also charts out the intricate relationships between various clans and the rulers. Such records were vital for the preservation of tradition, ensuring that the Ynglings remained central figures in both cultural memory and noble aspirations across generations. The Angles, a significant Germanic people, are notable for their central role during the transitional period of the Vendel Era, particularly following their migration from the Jutland Peninsula and southern Baltic region to Great Britain. This era saw them not only settle but also significantly shape the political landscape of early medieval England, where they established prominent kingdoms such as Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia. The etymology of their name, thought to derive from the Anglian Peninsula, reflects their origins and provides insights into the cultural and historical context from which they emerged. Their settlements laid the ground for what would evolve into the Anglo-Saxon culture. In the political arena, the Angles exhibited substantial organization and tribal structure, which facilitated the establishment of these kingdoms. The early political landscape was characterized by a fragmented mosaic of tribal affiliations. As the Angles dispersed across Britain, they formed alliances and rivalries with other groups, including the Saxons and the Jutes. This political enmity in the region led to the rise of established kingdoms, with Northumbria asserting considerable supremacy in the 7th century before being eclipsed by Mercia in the following century. The formation of politically cohesive entities like Northumbria was particularly significant as it helped consolidate power and influence within the British Isles. These kingdoms fostered not only local governance but also intricate networks of trade and cultural exchange, establishing the Angles as formidable players in early medieval politics. Militarily, the Angles were noteworthy for their seafaring prowess and their ability to launch maritime expeditions to reinforce their presence in Britain. These seafaring capabilities were crucial as they allowed the Angles to conduct successful raids and establish settlements along the British coasts. The maritime activities of the Angles contributed to their growth and dominance during this time, enhancing their reputation as warriors and explorers. The expansion of Anglian territories often involved tensions with neighboring tribes and kingdoms, driving forward both territorial claims and alliances. This militaristic culture emphasized valor and prowess, with tales of legendary heroes playing a crucial part in Anglian identity. The Angles' transition from paganism to Christianity signifies a vital cultural transformation within their communities. Initially, the Angles adhered to the so-called polytheistic beliefs, engaging in worship that included a pantheon of deities and sacred rites. The reverence for figures such as Nertus, the Earth Mother, points to a deep connection with nature and fertility, elements integral to their agrarian society. However, the arrival of Christianity marked a turning point in their spiritual practices and societal organization. Accounts from Bede and other early medieval historians detail how the Angles gradually converted to Christianity, driven by missionary efforts from figures such as Saint Augustine. The legend surrounding Pope Gregory I's encounter with Angle children, where he commented on their angelic appearance, inspired the papal mission that ultimately sought to bring Christianity to their homeland. This religious conversion intertwined with the political authorities of the Anglian kingdoms, creating a socio-political system that would come to define their identity. The literary legacy of the Angles, though influenced by later developments, is crucial in understanding their cultural ethos. Early medieval literature often blends oral traditions with recorded histories, preserving their identity and beliefs. Works by Bede, such as the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, provide insights into the Anglian culture, religion, and history during this period. Bede's writings articulated the significance of the Angles' connection to their origins in the continent and chronicled the transformative events that shaped their kingdoms. This literary narrative often reflected a synthesis of Christian doctrine with existing pagan traditions, portraying the Angles' journey as one of enlightenment and cultural refinement. Furthermore, religious institutions became centers of learning and literary production, fostering a gradual shift away from oral traditions towards a written legacy, preserving the Angles' stories for future generations. Archaeological findings in regions such as Schleswig offer invaluable insights into the Angles' material culture preceding their invasion of Britain. The remnants of cremation cemeteries, along with significant discoveries at sites like Needham and Thorsberg Moor, illuminate aspects of daily life during the period. Artifacts such as arms, ornaments, and agricultural implements not only reflect their craftsmanship and social systems, but also forge connections with the wider Germanic world. The presence of ships in these archaeological findings points to their naval capabilities, corroborating historical accounts of the Angles as seafarers. These excavations help construct a vivid picture of the Angles' cultural context, enhancing the understanding of their practices and beliefs as they moved from their ancestral homelands to new territories. As the Angles established their kingdoms in England and transitioned into a dominant cultural force, their lineage ultimately contributed to the emergence of English identity. The kingdoms they founded, especially Northumbria and Mercia, became vital centers of political power and cultural development. The political landscape was characterized not only by internal strife and the formation of alliances, but also by the rich tapestry of cultural and religious synthesis that ensued from their interactions with our peoples. By the end of the 8th century, as they faced pressure from external forces, including Viking incursions, the legacy of the Angles was firmly entrenched in what would become England, framing the evolution of the societal and cultural constructs that defined the region for centuries to come. Their name endures throughout history, etymologically linking the Angles with the very essence of English identity and heritage. The Jutes were one of the prominent Germanic tribes that settled in southern Britain during the early medieval period, particularly known for their roles in Kent, the Isle of Wight, and southern Hampshire. While historical sources regarding them are somewhat limited, their significance is underscored by accounts from chroniclers like Bede and the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. According to Bede, the Jutes were counted among the 3 most influential tribes alongside the Saxons and Angles. Their migration is believed to have occurred as a part of a broader wave of Germanic settlement following the Roman withdrawal from Britain, a time marked by political instability and social upheaval. The earliest records indicate that the Jutes were invited to Britain by local leaders, specifically by Vortigern, to aid against incursions from Pictish tribes. This invitation led to their arrival at Whippet's fleet, modern Ebb's fleet, and subsequent military engagements during which they successfully defeated opposing forces. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle illustrates the prominence of key figures such as Angus and Horsa, whose leadership inspired numerous Jutes to migrate across the sea and settle in British territories. Over time, the Jute presence expanded, establishing settlements and assimilating into the local culture. Initially, the Jutes settled primarily in Kent, which was likely characterized by a blend of Roman and emerging Germanic influences. Their settlement in this region came with complexities related to both land and governance. The Jutes arrived, they inherited some territorial disputes and political rivalries that would shape their interactions with neighboring tribes. Kent became a center of power for the Jutes, demonstrating a robust political system amidst a landscape that was still reeling from the recent collapse of Roman authority. As a result, the Jutish kingdom began to be organized, with cities and settlements growing alongside their military endeavors. As the 7th century approached, the political situation for the Jutes became more challenging. They faced growing military pressure from neighboring kingdoms, particularly from the Mercians, South Saxons and West Saxons who sought to dominate southern England. The reign of Hrothgar, a Jutish king of Kent, highlights the political challenges that arose as his kingdom went at war with Æthelred, the king of Mercia. In 676, Bede recounts an invasion of Kent by Mercian forces, where the city of Rochester was ravaged and the area's stability was further disrupted. This prompt undermined the political power of the Jutes, leading to internal strife and external pressures. Religiously, the Jutes underwent a gradual transformation from paganism to Christianity, particularly in Kent, which became an early center for Christian conversion in England. This transition was notably influenced by the arrival of Bertha, the Christian wife of Ethelbert of Kent, who came from the Frankish nobility. Her presence alongside the bishop Liudhard, who accompanied her, marked the beginning of a Christian revival in the region. Historical records suggest that Ethelbert himself was likely baptized around this time, making him the first of the Anglo-Saxon rulers to adopt Christianity, which would have profound implications for the Jutish and broader Anglo-Saxon community. The establishment of churches and the introduction of Christian burial practices represented a significant cultural shift for the Jutes. Cathedrals, including the one dedicated to St. Martin, were built to support this new faith, signaling the integration of Christian ideals into their social and political systems. Consequently, the initial pagan burial practices gave way to Christian norms, with burials typically oriented from east to west, symbolizing the hope of resurrection and eternal life promised by the Christian faith. From a literary and cultural perspective, the impact of the Jutes can be traced through a combination of archaeological findings and historical texts. Though the literary output from this era was limited, later works such as the Old English epic Beowulf provide some reflection of Jutish culture and heritage. The references to the Æþelingas in the poem have been linked by some scholars to the Jutes, suggesting enduring narratives of their identity even among cultural changes over time. The artifacts recovered from burial sites, including distinctive brooches and grave goods, showcase a blend of Frankish and Germanic influences, reflecting their connections with continental Europe. The sociopolitical system of the Jutes was further defined by their unique land tenure system known as Gavelkind, which involved partible inheritance of property among heirs. This custom allowed for equitable distribution of land, making it distinctive in comparison to the systems employed by neighboring tribes, and it continued to be practiced in Kent up until the 20th century. The enduring nature of Gavelkind is indicative of tribal governance and societal organization that the Jutes established in their settlements. However, despite their initial advantages, the political landscape for the Jutes began to shift significantly as the 7th century progressed, revealing vulnerabilities to external pressures. In the 80s of the 7th century, the Kingdom of Wessex under King Scylding was assertive in its military conquest, leading to the subjugation of the Isle of Wight and other Jutish territories. Scylding's brutal campaigns aimed to dismantle Jutish influence and replace it with Wessex marked a critical turning point for the tribe. Following these incursions, the Jutes saw their political power and cultural identity weaken as they became increasingly integrated into the burgeoning Wessex kingdom. During the Vendel period, the Danes emerged as a significant North Germanic tribe residing in what is now Denmark and parts of southern Scandinavia. This era marked the gradual formation of a unified identity among the Danes, with their foremost political center located at Leyre in Zealand. The Scylding Dynasty, significantly for its legendary connection to early Danish kings, presided over the region. The Danes expanded their influence into Jutland and southern Schleswig, where they built the Danevirke fortifications, which served as a defensive boundary to delineate their realm. These fortifications played a crucial role in shaping the borders of the Danish kingdom and facilitated their control over the surrounding regions. From the military perspective, the Danes began to develop organized raiding activities. Their initial forays into external territories began to take shape towards the end of the 8th century as they established settlements in areas such as the Danelaw in England and along the coasts of Ireland, Frisia, and the Loire Valley in France. Notable leaders such as the legendary brothers Ivar the Boneless and Halfdan Ragnarsson played pivotal roles in these military campaigns, which also facilitated trade and cultural exchange with the lands they engaged with. The raids were not merely acts of aggression, but often resulted in long-term settlements and the establishment of trading towns like Hedeby, which became crucial centers for commerce and cultural interaction. Hedeby, situated on the Jutland Peninsula, emerged as one of the most prominent trading towns in Scandinavia, serving as a vital hub for commerce, cultural exchange, and transfer of knowledge and ideas between the Danes and other European societies. Religiously, the Danes were adherents of the Norse pantheon, worshipping deities such as Odin, Thor, and Frey. The religious practices reflected a complex interplay of traditional beliefs and the early influence of Christianity, which began to permeate Danish society in the latter part of the 8th century. Artifacts from around this time, including rune stones depicting Christian motifs alongside Norse symbols, suggest an evolving spiritual landscape where older customs coexisted with newly introduced Christian elements. Arianism may have also already been present, hinting at a diverse religious environment in early Danish society, although the transition to Christianity would only fully manifest in later centuries. The coexistence of pagan and Christian elements in Danish culture and society can be seen in the artwork and literature of the time, such as the intricate carvings on the golden Hiddense treasure, which showcases a blend of Norse and Christian motives. This blending of spiritual traditions underscores the fluid and dynamic nature of Danish culture during this period. Literally, the Danes were mentioned in classical texts as early as the 6th century, with references from Jordanes Procopius and Gregory of Tours providing some of the earliest accounts of their existence and socio-political system. The poetic works of the Old English period, such as Widsith and Beowulf, also highlight their significance as a formidable people, depicting both their noble lineage and martial prowess. Later accounts, notably those by Saxo Grammaticus, would build upon these narratives, intertwining historical facts with mythological elements to present a cohesive, if dramatized, history of the Danes that influenced how their legacy was perceived in successive generations. Saxo's works, such as the Gesta Danorum, are particularly notable for their comprehensive treatment of Danish history, covering everything from the mythical founding of Denmark to the conversion to Christianity. The cultural and artistic achievements of the Danes during this period were also significant. Their metalwork, pottery, and weaving traditions, as well as their craftsmanship in woodwork and textiles, showcase a high level of skill and craftsmanship. The intricate patterns and designs characteristic of Danish art during this time reflect the blending of Nordic and European influences that define the cultural landscape of the region. Their legacy in this regard can be seen in the numerous archaeological sites and artifacts that have been uncovered across Scandinavia and beyond, providing a tangible connection to the cultural and artistic developments of the Danes. In terms of governments and administration, the Danes developed a system of rule that was characterized by a mix of tribal and monarchical forms of governance. The Scylding Dynasty, mentioned earlier, played a crucial role in early development of Denmark's system of governments, with its leaders wielding significant power and influence over the realm. As the Danish kingdom expanded and grew in influence, so too did the complexity and sophistication of its administrative system. The establishment of the Lair kingdom, which served as the central power hub of the Danes during this period, reflects the developing sophistication of Danish governance and administration. The kingdom's leaders were able to exercise authority over a large geographic area, facilitating the administration of resources, justice, and military affairs. The Wulfings, also referred to as the Ealthings, emerged as one of the most significant clans during the formative centuries of the early medieval period in northern Europe, specifically within the landscape overlapping what later became Scandinavian parts of modern-day Sweden. Etymologically, the name Wulfing translates to Wolf clan, reflecting the symbolic importance of the wolf in Nordic mythology, often associated with strength, loyalty, and ferocity. Their status is evident in numerous literary works of the time, including Beowulf, the Widsith, and various Norse sagas, where they are depicted not just as noble warriors, but as influential actors in the political and social realities of their age. In the epic poem Beowulf, the Wulfings play a crucial role, functioning within a web of alliances and enmities that define the power dynamics of the era. The clan is introduced through a moment of historical enmity with Æþelingas. The father of Beowulf kills a member of the Wulfing clan and subsequently faces the repercussions of this act through banishment. This narrative element underscores the severe tribal justice system, where the concept of veregild or man price plays a central role in the resolution of grievances. Hrothgar, the Danish king, and a figure of great importance in the poem, intervenes by paying the veregild on behalf of Æþelingas, illustrating the intricate alliances that characterize noble families and the significance of their marriages. Hrothgar himself is allied to the Wulfings through his marriage to Wealhtheow, a woman of the Wulfing bloodline, thus highlighting the interconnectedness of personal relationships and political strategy. The geographical locus of the Wulfings is often associated with Östergötland, a petty kingdom in what is now southern Sweden. As we've seen, this region served as a significant cultural and political center and was purportedly ruled by the Wulfings. The Heimskringla and Zogobrot, essential historical texts, recount the narrative of Ogni, who is illustrated as a ruler of Östergötland, and his interaction with Helgi Undiksbane, perhaps the most renowned figure within the Wulfing saga. Helgi's story, preserved in the poems Helga Kvita Undiksbane, first and second within the poetic Edda, depicts archetypal themes of heroism, valiant battles, and the tragic nature of fate, all essential motives of Norse literature. Helgi's encounters with rival clans and tragic duels encapsulate the ideal of the heroic warrior, emphasizing bravery, honor, and sometimes fatalistic approach to destiny. The existence of notable figures like Eiríkr and the Wise further illustrates the Wulfings' prominence in both military and political spheres. Eiríkr, recognized as one of the clan members, is mentioned in Skaldska Parmal, which catalogues various poetic forms and styles indicative of how the Wulfings contributed not only to military endeavors but also to the perpetuation of cultural narratives. The interweaving of heroic poetry and clan identities in this era suggests that the Wulfings were pivotal in shaping both the literary and historical record of their time. As the Wulfings navigated their political landscapes, their alliances and rivalries influenced the composition of numerous sagas and poems that would come to define the cultural heritage of the Norse. The legends surrounding the clan hint at a complex societal system where kinship ties dictated political loyalty, military alliances, and even mechanisms of conflict resolution. The tale of Helgi Undiksbane, for example, not only illustrates bravery but also serves as a commentary on the political intricacies of the Wulfing lineage, as his battles often resonate with larger struggles for power and legitimacy among the clans of the time. In addition to their political and military significance, the Wulfings held a prominent place in the religious landscape of pre-Christian Scandinavia. Their identities were likely intertwined with the worship of various deities, reflecting the spiritual practices of the society around them. The wolf was a potent symbol, resonating with the mythology surrounding figures such as Fenrir and other wolf-associated deities, signifying a connection to strength, ferocity, and the natural world. The reverence for such symbols could have provided a spiritual backing to the clan's endeavors, embedding their identity within the larger cosmological framework of Norse belief systems. Modern scholarship has pursued connections between the Wulfings and later historical dynasties, particularly with the East Anglian Yngling Dynasty, suggesting that the narrative surrounding the Wulfings may have had a lasting impact on the evolution of Anglo-Saxon culture and governance. This potential lineage indicates how the stories associated with clans like the Wulfings could influence the self-perception and historical narratives of later Germanic peoples. The notion that Beowulf himself may embody aspects of the Wulfing legacy further illustrates the intertwining of myth and history within the unfolding tapestry of Northern European heritage. During the Vendel period, the Scyldings or Scyldingar clan emerged as a prominent force in Scandinavian politics, leaving behind a rich and complex legacy of myths, legends, and historical records. They claim to have descended from the legendary king Scyld or Skjaldur, said to have been a mighty warrior who founded the dynasty's rule over Denmark and other surrounding territories. According to Scandinavian traditions, Scyld's descendants ruled with varying degrees of power and stability, and their names and relationships appear in different texts and with inconsistencies, reflecting the complex and often contradictory nature of early Scandinavian historiography. One of the earliest Scylding ancestors was Keith, a cultural hero who allegedly arrived in Scandinavia as a child, accompanied by a sheaf of wheat. This mythological figure was said to have eventually become the king of the Angles, ruling from Schleswig. Scyld's descendants became known as Scyldings, with Scyld as a prominent figure in early Scandinavian traditions. However, the exact nature of the Scylding dynasty and their relationships remain unclear due to the numerous discrepancies in various texts, including the Vitsit and other Anglo-Saxon sources, as well as the Old Norse accounts recorded by Arngrimur Jonsson. Scyld himself was said to have been succeeded by various sons, but their names and parentage vary greatly across different accounts. Saxo Grammaticus Gesta Danorum, for instance, mentions a son named Gram, who may have been a translation of the adjective fierce. This raises questions about the origins of the name and its significance with the Scylding dynasty. Who may be a mistranslation of the adjective fierce. This raises questions about the origins of the name and its significance with the Scylding dynasty, highlighting the difficulties in reconstructing a coherent genealogy from the diverse and often conflicting sources available. The Scylding kings continued to rule over Denmark and other territories, with different sources providing various accounts of their ancestors, including the introduction of kings such as Dan, Hadingus, and Fridleif, whose names and relationships seem to be duplicate or conflicting. Saxo's Gesta Danorum, for example, introduces a Dan, who is the third king with that name in his account, making him the second Dan to be mentioned as an ancestor of the Scylding dynasty, further adding to the complexity of the genealogical relationships within the clan. Halfdan, a son of Scyld, appears to be the first Scylding king with a clear genealogy in both English and Old Norse sources. Both Old English and Old Norse sources. He is the father of Helgi, Hroar, and several other sons with his descendants, including the famous Hrolf Kraki. According to Beowulf, Halfdan's son Beowulf was succeeded by Halfdan himself, while in all Norse accounts, Halfdan and his descendants appear with varying degrees of consistency. The Yngling saga attributed to Snorri Sturluson provides a detailed genealogy of the Scylding dynasty, tracing the line of Scyld descendants from Halfdan to the end of the dynasty. However, the saga's authorship and accuracy have been subjects of debate among scholars, highlighting the challenges of establishing a reliable historical record from the often conflicting and contradictory accounts available. The Jutes, known in Old West Norse as Gotar and in Old Gutnish as Gutar, were an influential North Germanic tribe that inhabited Gotland, an island located in the center of the Baltic Sea. Their ethnonym is related etymologically to that of the Goths, Gutans, both of which derive from Proto-Germanic Gutanix, showing historical and linguistic connection. The language spoken by the Jutes, known as Gutnish, exhibits certain unique features that suggest a close relationship with Gothic, distinguishing it from other Germanic languages. This affiliation highlights their importance not only as a distinct cultural group, but also as a critical link in the historical narrative of the northern Germanic tribes. The earliest accounts of the Jutes come from the Guta saga, a legendary history that recounts their origins. According to the saga, the Jutes descended from a figure named Tjeldvar, reputed to be the first to discover Gotland. Tjeldvar's lineage is marked by his son Æthi, and Æthi's wife Witastjerna divided Gotland into 3 sections, yet Guti emerged as the foremost chieftain, lending his name to the land of its people. This foundational myth underscores the Jutes' deep ties to their territory and heritage, illustrating a society proud of its lineage and regional identity. The Jutes' strategic positioning in the Baltic area allowed them to become prominent traders, leading to their reputation as powerful mercantile society. Much of the wealth accumulated during this era came from trade, rather than conquest, which aligns with their identity as merchants. Before the 7th century, historical sources indicate that the Jutes entered into a trade and defense agreement with Swedish kings, primarily as a response to Swedish military aggressions. The Guta saga narrates that despite several confrontations, the Jutes often emerged victorious. However, rather than continuing on a path of enmity, they ultimately recognized the benefits of diplomacy and engaged in negotiations to secure lasting peace. The peace treaty was spearheaded by Aver Straben, an articulate and shrewd mediator from Alva parish who succeeded where other envoys had failed. He established a fixed annual tribute of 60 marks of silver, with 40 marks allocated for the king and 20 for the jarls. This agreement was mutually advantageous, as it allowed the Jutes to travel freely within Swedish territories without facing tolls or restrictions, while the Swedes received the right to import goods to Gotland without any hindrance. In essence, this accord marked a significant moment in their political evolution, showcasing the Jutes' willingness to engage in mutually beneficial arrangements that provided a framework for peaceful coexistence and commerce. In addition to their political dealings, the military readiness of the Jutes was a crucial aspect of their society. The social system of early Gotlandic community indicated a population that was both agrarian and militarily inclined. The Jutes were engaged in farming, yet they also assumed the roles of traveling merchants known as farmen, who faced peril on the high seas, especially from piracy. This dual lifestyle created an environment where the Jutes had to remain vigilant, even prepared for potential adversities, whether on land or at sea. Over time, their culture developed symbols associated with strength and warriors, with the ram emblem emerging as a significant marker of their identity, which is still visible on the Gotlandic coat of arms today. Religious practices during this era were primarily pagan, with a pantheon of gods and traditions that reflected their connection to nature and the world around them. The Jutes were likely influenced by wider Norse beliefs, emphasizing the veneration of deities tied to warfare, fertility, and the elements. Temples and sacred sites, now lost to history, would have been central to their spiritual life, facilitating communal bonding and reinforcing social hierarchies. Linguistically, the Jutes retained a distinct dialect that, while closely related to Gothic, also exhibited features unique to their culture. The existence of specific terms and word forms that only appeared in Gutnish and Gothic illustrates the Jutes' isolation and independence, even as their trade relationships expanded across the Baltic region. Linguists have noted that certain vocabulary, such as the term for sheep, which is lamb in both Gutnish and Gothic, hints at an early shared cultural and linguistic heritage that differentiated them from their neighbors. The extensive silver wealth found in the soil of Gotland during the later periods is a testament to the Jutes' prosperous trade economy, surpassing that of all other Swedish provinces combined. This economic vitality would have played a pivotal role in their political dealings, and contributed to their status as a significant power within the Baltic, highlighting the Jutes' transformation from a locally focused tribe to an influential trading nation on a larger stage. The Vagoth, also known as Vagoth in Latin sources, were a significant Germanic tribe during the vibrant yet complex Vendel period. Historical references, most notably those made by the historian Jordanes, place them in the mythical landscape of Skansa, which many scholars surmise corresponds to parts of modern Scandinavia. The Vagoth have been variously identified with the Geats of Vikbolandet and the Gutar of Gotland, but both situated in Sweden, linking them to various geographical features such as the vast lake and the river Vagi. The exact geographical identification remains a point of contention, but it is clear that the Vagoth held a notable position within the wider Germanic world. In the political realm, the Vagoth operated within a patchwork of shifting alliances and rivalries that characterized the Germanic tribes of the era. They would have been influenced by both internal dynamics, with strong tribal leadership and a hereditary nobility, and external factors such as the encroachments of neighboring tribes. Political power among the Vagoth likely centered around chieftains who played crucial roles in rallying their warriors and managing resources. This hierarchy was underpinned by kinship ties, which reinforced allegiances and familial loyalty. The political landscape was dynamic. As the Vagoth interacted with other tribes, they would have engaged in negotiations, forming alliances for mutual benefit, or entering into acts of enmity to secure their national claims and resources. Militarily, the Vagoth exemplified the martial traditions that were hallmarks of Germanic societies. The warrior ethos dominated their culture, elevating the values of bravery and loyalty to a social ideal. Their military organization was likely highly structured, with a clear distinction between ranks among nobility and common warriors. As a warrior culture, the Vagoth would have employed sophisticated tactics for the time, combining both offense and defense in their engagements. In addition, their craftsmanship in weaponry and armor reflected their prowess. They would have utilized materials available in the surroundings, such as iron for swords and shields, enhancing their combat effectiveness. These attributes were essential not only for defending their territory, but also for expanding it, as incursions into neighboring lands could yield fertile grounds and resources necessary for their survival. Religious practices among the Vagoth were likely deeply rooted in the Germanic pagan beliefs of the time, characterized by a so-called polytheistic pantheon that included numerous deities associated with natural forces, fertility, and warfare. Rituals and sacrifices would have been an intrinsic part of daily life, performed to appease gods and secure their favor in endeavors such as agriculture and military ventures. The presence of sacred sites and groves dedicated to specific gods may have played a vital role in community gatherings and religious observances, reinforcing social unity. These practices were not merely superstitions, they were integral to their worldview, marking essential life events such as births, marriages, and deaths. The interweaving of religion with everyday life helped to create a cohesive cultural identity that strengthened the bonds among community members. Literature was another significant aspect of Vagoth society, serving as a vital medium for transmitting values, histories, and cultural norms. Oral traditions flourished during this time, with skalds and bards recounting sagas that celebrated heroic deeds, ancestral lineages, and the tribe's collective memory. These narratives played an important role as they not only entertained but also imparted lessons about bravery, honor, loyalty, and the expectations of individuals within their societal system. The preservation of such stories allowed the Vagoth to maintain their identity in the face of external pressures and changes, serving as a reminder of their heritage and the ideals they inspired to uphold. The Bergio People were a notable tribe, inhabiting the fertile and strategically significant regions of Scandinavia, likely positioned in either Bjerre, Heardred in Skåne, or Komlorden, located between the territories of the Swedes and Geats. Their presence is documented by the historian Jordanes in his seminal work Getica, wherein he describes the multitude of tribes living on the island of Skansa, a name attributed to Scandinavia by ancient scholars. This region was characterized as a womb of nations, teeming with tribes that exhibited both physical prowess and a fierce reputation, suggesting that the Bergio, along with their contemporaries, were likely descendants of the Jutes lineage, known for their imposing stature as highlighted by historical and archaeological evidence. Jordanes portrays the inhabitants of Skansa, including the Bergio, as remarkably tall and vigorous, traits that may have arisen from their diet and lifestyle. In this landscape, populated with diverse groups, the Bergio mingled with other tribes, such as the Squarefenne, who were primarily hunter-gatherers reliant on the rich resources of the area, and the Sueans, recognized for their superb horses, which were highly valued in trade, especially during interactions with neighboring cultures. The Sueans were particularly notable for supplying black fox skins to the Roman market, talking the Swedes, indicating a level of economic engagement that suggests the existence of trade networks that likely included the Bergio. Alongside the Bergian Jordanes narrative are tribes such as the Teustes from the Jutes region and the Vagoths, possibly akin to the Gutar of Gotland, reflecting a broader regional context that included various Germanic peoples known for their militant aspects of societal systems. The presence of the Bergio in such a complex tribal matrix showcases their role not only as warriors engaged in the political and military endeavors characteristic of the time, but also as participants in a rich tapestry of religious and cultural life. In a social-political context, the landscapes inhabited by the Bergio were subject to the influences and ambitions of their neighbors. The geographic flatness of the region made them vulnerable to territorial disputes and incursions, thereby necessitating a military readiness among the tribe. The degree to which the Bergio engaged in political enmity with adjacent tribes remained a subject of historical interpretation, but their mention alongside bold and warlike groups, such as the Gauti Goths, underscores a potential role in the military alliances and rivalries that characterized this period. Culturally, the mention of the Bergio in Getica not only serves as an affirmation of their existence, but also places them within the context of pagan beliefs prevalent among Germanic tribes during this era. While specific details about Bergio religious practices remain scarce in historical records, their group undoubtedly shared customs with neighboring tribes marked by rituals honoring deities linked to war, fertility, and nature. Such religious affiliations likely played a critical role in their social cohesion and identity, as well as in their interactions with other tribes, including those who may have adopted different pantheons or spiritual practices. Literally, Jordanes' account of the Bergio contributes to a deeper understanding of the historical narrative of this part of Scandinavia. His work not only documents tribal distinctions and lifestyles, but also reflects the intermingling of myth and historical fact, a hallmark of the historiographical tradition of the time. Through his observations, one can glean insights into how the Bergio identified themselves within the broader context of Germanic tribes, showcasing their importance in contributing to a shared Northern European identity that would continue to evolve into later historical periods. Notably, the connections established by Jordanes between the Bergio and other tribes, such as the Ostrogoths, and various groups residing in today's Norway and Denmark, illustrate the complexity of tribal relations in the Vendel period. These relationships were shaped by not only geographical proximity, but also by economical interdependence and shared experiences in warfare, as well as cultural exchanges that would lay a foundation for the evolving dynamics of power that would come to define the Viking Age. The various names and titles associated with the Bergio, like Berag and Barak, also provide clues about the linguistic developments of the time, reflecting the evolution of the Germanic languages spoken across Scandinavia. Each mention of the Bergio, whether in relation to their neighbors or within the broader discourse of the peoples of Skansa, serves as a testament to their significance as a distinct community, cohesive enough to maintain a collective identity, yet fluid enough to participate in the complex intertribal relationships of the time. Hrothgar, a semi-legendary figure within the rich tapestry of the Vendel Era, emerges as a significant agent of political, military, and cultural development in both the Anglo-Saxon and Norse literary traditions. Historically situated around the early 6th century AD, he is portrayed as the king of the Danes, steeped in the legacy of the Scylding Dynasty, the son of the esteemed king Halfdan, and the brother of Alga, further establishing a narrative that intertwines familial bonds and political authority. This web of relationships highlights the importance of lineage in asserting legitimacy and dominance in the time characterized by shifting allegiances and power struggles. Politically, Hrothgar is often depicted as a wise and judicious ruler whose reign is marked by efforts to maintain stability and unity among his people. A fundamental incident that underscores Hrothgar's diplomatic acumen in his resolution of the blood feud involving Ecgtheow, Beowulf's father. In this episode, Hrothgar demonstrates his skill in diplomacy by paying off the Wulfings, thus averting further bloodshed and strengthening alliances that were crucial for maintaining peace. This act not only manifests Hrothgar's commitment to peace over vengeance, but also reflects the broader societal values of kingship, honor, and reciprocity that governed noble conduct, solidifying his reputation as a king who prioritizes the welfare of his realm. Hrothgar's military endeavors are prominently illustrated through the challenges he faces as he contends with the monstrous Grendel, whose terror has decimated his whole Heardred and demoralized his warriors. The building of Heardred itself symbolizes Hrothgar's aspirations as a leader. It is a grand hall meant for feasting and camaraderie, reflecting the prosperity of his reign. However, with the emergence of Grendel, who stalks the hall by night, the reality of Hrothgar's deteriorating power comes to light. Beowulf's arrival serves as a turning point, and Hrothgar's willingness to accept assistance from an outsider reveals both his vulnerability and his recognition of the importance of strong alliances in warfare. The relationship that develops between Hrothgar and Beowulf echoes the broader theme of mentorship and the passing down of wisdom, as Hrothgar sees in Beowulf the qualities of a hero who can restore hope to the Danes. The military aspect of Hrothgar's narrative continues through his reflection on the importance of unity amid external threats. Despite his initial despair over Grendel's attacks, Hrothgar exhibits resilience and determination, embodying the spirit of leadership essential for overcoming adversities. His rallying of troops and eventual gratitude towards Beowulf for vanquishing Grendel aligns with the cultural ideal of the warrior ethos, which places value on bravery and the heroic act of defense against the encroaching darkness. Within the religious framework of Hrothgar's story, we find a compelling exploration of fate and divine providence. Hrothgar often acknowledges a higher power in his speeches, exemplifying a relationship with the divine that permeates the text. When Beowulf defeats Grendel, Hrothgar expresses deep gratitude, framing the hero's success as a gift from God rather than merely a product of physical strength. He cautions Beowulf against arrogance, advising him to remain humble in the face of victory. This spiritual dimension adds a rich layer to Hrothgar's character, depicting him as a ruler who seeks guidance and recognizes the moral implications of authority. Hrothgar's personal relationships also intertwine with his political role, particularly his marriage to Wealhtheow, a member of the Yngling clan. This alliance not only reinforces the political connections between powerful families, but also adds complexity to Hrothgar's character. Wealhtheow, as a queen, embodies the ideals of the maternal and nurturing aspect of leadership, further emphasizing the significance of family ties and the legacy of kingship. They have two sons, Heardred and Hrothmund, who are heirs to Hrothgar's throne. The careful consideration of their lineage and upbringing suggests Hrothgar's foresight and sense of responsibility for the future of Denmark, particularly in a time rife with political enmity, exemplified by the tension with the Æthelbards. In this context, the tradition surrounding Hrothgar also introduces the figure of Yngling, a character representing the external threats that loom over Hrothgar's kingdom. The political animosities between the Scyldings and Yngling's lineage illustrate the fragility of peace and the persistent nature of enmity that shapes the course of events in the narrative. Hrothgar's attempts to quell these hostilities through the marriage of his daughter Freavaru to Yngling highlight the traditional use of marriage as a diplomatic tool to forge alliances and mitigate any potential for violence. Yet, the tensions generated by these familial connections indicate the complexities of achieving true peace, again underlying the precarious balance between personal relationships and political strategy during this era. Hrothgar also appears in a broader body of literature that encompasses Norse sagas and medieval Danish chronicles, such as the works of Saxo Grammaticus and the Skjoldunga saga. These sources, composed centuries after the events they describe, preserve and transform the legend of Hrothgar, illustrating the ways oral traditions evolved. While they manage to maintain core elements of Hrothgar's identity, his royal lineage and kinship to Alga and Hrothulf, various texts yield differing portrayals of the key events. Certain Scandinavian traditions highlight Hrothgar's transition from a king of Denmark to a figure with a diminished role, reinforcing Hrothgar's complexity as a character caught at the intersection of personal tragedy and heroic ideals. The saga narratives also delve into Hrothgar's familial connections, often emphasizing the incestuous relationship between Halga and his daughter Yrsa, who becomes Hrothulf's mother. This motive introduces themes of conflict and sacrifice, as familial loyalty and betrayal often dictate the course of action taken by characters in the narratives. The persistent theme of vengeance, as highlighted in the feud with Ingild, reinforces the cyclical nature of violence and the tragedies that often accompany it, compelling readers to consider the moral ramifications of such actions. In the context of the Vendel era, which spanned the 6th and 8th centuries in Scandinavia, Beowulf emerges as a cornerstone of Old English literature, encapsulating a narrative steeped in political intrigue, martial valor, spiritual conflict, and literary artistry. This epic poem is set in the mythic version of the region, unfolding against a backdrop of fragmented political landscapes where tribal identities such as the Geats and Danes are intricately woven into the heroic saga of Beowulf, a prince of the Geats. One of the central aspects of Beowulf lies in its portrayal of a world where tribal affiliations were paramount. This is evident in its opening passages, which detail the origins of the Geats and their relationship with the Danish kingdom under the leadership of King Scyld Scefing. This early narrative thread underscores the importance of family ties and kinship within the Geatish society, as Scyld is said to have left the Danish throne in favor of his grandson, which would eventually lead to the events surrounding the Danish Mead-Hall, Heardred, and Grendel's reign of terror. The epic setting against the backdrop of Scandinavian politics serves to underscore the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that define the region during this period. For instance, the story of Heardred's destruction at the hands of Grendel highlights the vulnerability of even the most powerful kingdoms to external threats, as embodied by the monstrous figure of Grendel. Conversely, the eventual victory of Beowulf over this menace underscores the resilience of the Danish kingdom and its capacity to withstand the onslaught of external enemies. The military prowess of Beowulf serves as a central tenet in the narrative, exemplifying the warrior ethic that defined the time. His bravery in combat against both Grendel and the latter's mother is often praised as the epitome of martial valor, a trait considered essential for a leader in medieval Scandinavian society. Moreover, his actions are depicted as an expression of loyalty and duty towards his own people and his king, Hrothgar, which highlights the paramount importance of these social bonds in the region. In addition, the narrative of Beowulf delves into the realm of myth, where supernatural forces and legendary creatures play a vital role in the unfolding of events. This aspect of the narrative draws heavily from the oral traditions that likely influenced the text's composition, where legendary tales of gods and giants would have served as a common currency of storytelling and cultural transmission. The incorporation of mythic elements such as Grendel's monstrous ancestry and the involvement of the giantess Hygelac, his mother, serves as a testament to the enduring legacy of pagan mythology in the Anglo-Saxon world. The epic's exploration of mythological themes is intertwined with a complex exploration of Christian values, highlighting the transitional nature of the Anglo-Saxon period. This is evident in the recurring invocations to divine guidance and intervention, which underscore growing prominence of Christianity in the region. At the same time, the narrative often blurs the lines between Christian and pagan worldviews, where the fate and destiny of characters is subject to both divine will and the capricious nature of the gods. This ambiguity reflects the fluid boundaries between these two belief systems during this period as Christianity gradually gained ground in the face of a lingering pagan heritage. Literally, Beowulf stands out for its mastery of Old English poetry, which is with its rich alliterative verse that serves to heighten the narrative's dramatic tension. The poet's use of kennings and a complex structure underscores the intellectual craftsmanship of the text, elevating it to the status of a true literary masterpiece. Moreover, the text's intricate use of imagery and symbolism adds another layer to its richness, where motives of fire and light frequently serve to underscore themes of life and death, with the meat-hole Ealra and its destruction by Grendel representing a potent symbol of the cyclical nature of existence. Unferth, known as Ecglaf's son in the Old English epic poem Beowulf, is a multifaceted figure that occupies a significant role in the Vendel Era, a period marked by numerous historical and cultural highlights. As a Thane, a noble of free birth, in the court of Hrothgar, Unferth's position within the Danish society signifies both his status within the hierarchical system and his function as a voice within the court. He is portrayed as envious of Beowulf, challenging him and bringing up past exploit, which symbolizes the competitive and status-driven nature of warrior culture during this era. Throughout the narrative, Unferth is depicted as a complex character whose actions and motives often serve as a catalyst for the plot. His role in the poem highlights the intricate social dynamics of the time period, where loyalty, honor, and reputation were paramount considerations for individuals of noble standing. Unferth's actions, though sometimes antagonistic, demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the societal expectations that governed his conduct. One of the most striking aspects of Unferth's character in his functions as a social taunter who uses his cunning and wit to provoke and challenge others within the court. This trait is highlighted in his initial confrontation with Beowulf, where he questions the young warrior's bravery and exploit, specifically a swimming contest that Beowulf participated in. This narrative device serves as a testing ground for Beowulf's heroism, as the two characters engage in a verbal sparring match that underscores the competitive nature of warrior culture. Militarily, Unferth's significance is underscored when he lends Beowulf his sword, Hrunting, before facing Grendel's mother, showcasing his recognition of Beowulf's prowess. This act is significant, as it indicates a shift from his earlier insults to a more supportive role, suggesting an acknowledgement of Beowulf's strength in the face of danger. However, the sword ultimately fails against Grendel's mother, highlighting the precarious nature of martial success and the weight of legacy, as Hrunting is described as an ancient treasure known for its former victories. The failure of Hrunting against Grendel's mother serves as a turning point in the narrative, as Beowulf is forced to rely on his own prowess to defeat the monster. This event highlights the limitations of relying on the past and the importance of individual bravery in the face of adversity. Furthermore, it underscores the complexities of Unferth's character, who is simultaneously a symbol of loyalty and a harbinger of fate. In a broader historical context, Unferth's actions within the narrative reflect the cultural and social changes of the Vendel era. As a Thane, he embodies the traditional values of warrior culture, where martial prowess and loyalty to the Lord were paramount considerations. However, his interactions with Beowulf, particularly his eventual support of the young warrior, suggest a growing recognition of the importance of personal bravery and reputation in determining an individual's status within society. Religiously, Unferth's role in Beowulf is characterized by his function as a Thule, court orator, a term that is often associated with ancient traditions and rituals related to Woden, the chief deity of pre-Christian Scandinavia. This intersection reflects the broader cultural shifts of the period, as legendary narratives intertwined with nascent Christian beliefs, positioning Unferth within this traditional framework. As a figure who navigates the boundaries between paganism and Christianity, Unferth serves as a microcosm for the complex cultural changes that were taking place during that year. In literary terms, Unferth's role in Beowulf's is characterized by his function as a foil to Beowulf, highlighting the young warrior's bravery and heroism. Through his interactions with Beowulf, Unferth serves as a catalyst for the narrative, propelling the plot forward and exposing the complexities of warrior culture and the evolving social dynamics of the time period. His duality as both antagonist and reluctant ally enriches the text as he oscillates between these two roles, embodying the intricate interplay of human flows and aspirations in epic storytelling. Heardred, the son of Hygelac and Hygd, ruled as the king of the Geats during a tumultuous period marked by political intrigue and military challenges. Following Hygelac's demise in Frisia, Hygd expressed concern about her son Heardred's ability to lead and protect their people, proposing Beowulf as a more capable sovereign. However, Beowulf, demonstrating confidence in Heardred's potential, chose to support the young king's ascension. Thus, Heardred was officially crowned, inheriting the responsibilities of leadership over Geatland. In the broader political landscape, the death of King Othar of Sweden saw power transition to his brother Onela, which destabilized relations with the Geats. The Swedish royal family faced upheavals as Eadgils and Enmund, Othar's sons, sought refuge with Heardred after fleeing their kingdom. This alliance led to a retaliatory move from Onela, who initiated a military campaign against the Geats, aiming to eliminate his rival nephews and to seek revenge for the death of his father, Ongentheow, and at the hands of Geatish warriors. The ensuing hostilities culminated in a significant battle where Heardred lost his life, illustrating the treacherous nature of Nordic politics and loyalties. Enmund also fell in battle, slain by Weohstan, marking a poignant moment of kinship turned hostile amidst the tumult of power struggle. After Heardred's death, Beowulf ascended the throne, taking immediate action to avenge Enmund by supporting Eadgils in his quest to defeat Onela, an episode that resonates in both literary and historical narratives of the time, highlighting Heardred's rule as a pivotal chapter in the saga of the Geats. Wiglaf stands out as a prominent character in the epic poem Beowulf, which not only illustrates the socio-political dynamics of the Vendel era, but also encapsulates the essence of heroism and loyalty within the heroic tradition. His lineage harkens back to the Wegmunding clan, where he is the son of Weohstan, a figure who navigated the treacherous waters of Scandinavian politics. Weohstan's connections to the Scyldings, the ruling clan of the Swedes, adorn Wiglaf's background with a sense of political complexity. This connection is made evident when Weohstan slays the rebel prince Enmund, an act that intertwines personal ambition with the overarching themes of loyalty and vengeance that dominated political relationships in this era. Wiglaf inherits not just his father's sword, a trophy of victory, but also the weight of these familiar and clan-based expectations. Wiglaf's actions in the poem mark him as a paragon of loyalty in a society that revered allegiance to one's lord. As Beowulf faces the dragon, a fearsome creature terrorizing Geatland, Wiglaf's presence at Beowulf's side serves to highlight the critical bond that existed between a lord and his thanes. While many of Beowulf's warriors retreat, succumbing to primal fear, Wiglaf stands firm, defying the collective cowardice. This moment of valor is not merely a testament to his character. It is steeped in the expectations of a warrior's duty, as foretold by the hereditary values of honor and bravery. His encouragement to Beowulf, filled with fervor and resolve, reflects the deep-seated warrior ethic, emphasizing that a true thane must rise to the occasion, especially in his lord's hour of need. From a military perspective, Wiglaf's bravery culminates in his most significant act of defiance against the dragon, marking his first true combat experience alongside his liege. The burning fire of the dragon, a representation of destruction and death, becomes a catalyst for Wiglaf's transformation from a mere thane into a hero in his own right. The moment he decides to confront the beast is a rite of passage, signifying growth and the assumption of responsibilities inherent to his lineage. He faces considerable risk, with his shield being consumed by fire, a vivid epitome of the sacrifices made by warriors on the battlefield. In these instances, the poem captures the quintessential values of combat in the Vendel era, where fate, personal honor, and collective legacy intersect in moments of violent reckoning. In the wake of Beowulf's mortal wounding, when the dragon strikes with a vengeance that shatters Beowulf's sword, it is Wiglaf who steps forward, refusing to flee as others have done. His bravery inspires his dying king, and together they manage to vanquish the dragon through a combined effort that encapsulates the idea of camaraderie in warfare. Wiglaf's initial fear transitions into resolute action. He tears into the dragon's neck with renewed vigor, resulting in the creator's ultimate demise. This act positions him not only as a loyal vassal but as a key figure in the preservation of their kingdom, showcasing the critical role of heirloom responsibilities that was intrinsic in the societal system of the time. On the religious and philosophical front, Wiglaf embodies ideals that transcend mere physical prowess. His deeds resonate with the spiritual constructs surrounding heroism prevalent in the Vendel era. The act of fighting alongside Beowulf against the dragon suggests deeper understanding of destiny and duty, where warriors were not only fighting for immediate gain but were also seen as guardians of their people's future. His actions underscore the belief that heroes, through their sacrifices, can shape the fates of their communities, acting as a conduit for divine favor or wrath. In this light, Wiglaf's commitment to Beowulf and the Geats can be seen as a fulfillment of his physical and spiritual obligations foundational in the heroic culture. Literally, Wiglaf serves as a moral arbiter within the narrative, particularly following Beowulf's death. After the epic battle, he stands amidst the body of his fallen lord and chastises the remaining thanes, condemning them for their cowardice. This moment solidifies his role as the inheritor of Beowulf's legacy, positioning him not only as a warrior but also as a potential leader. His declaration to exile the retreating warriors conveys the severe consequences of failing to uphold the values of loyalty and bravery. Concurrently, this scene reinforces the expectation that a true warrior bears not just the mantle of fighting, but also the responsibilities of judgment and governance. Moreover, Wiglaf expresses his grief poignantly, lamenting the future of the Geats without their valiant leader, which serves to emphasize the existential threat they face now that Beowulf is gone. His speeches resonate with a sense of foreboding regarding the fate of the kingdom, as he recognizes the fragility of power and stability without the guiding hand of a mighty king. His reflections serve to capture the essence of what it means to lead, protect, and nurture one's kin in a world fraught with dangers. As the narrative winds down, Wiglaf's final acts are steeped in a symbolic significance following the death of Beowulf. He undertakes the solemn duty of gathering treasures from the dragon's lair, fulfilling Beowulf's last requests. This is not only a demonstration of his adherence to the traditions of the warrior elite, but also signifies the transference of power. By placing the treasures before Beowulf's lifeless form, Wiglaf encapsulates the tragic heroism that defines the tales wherein wealth and glory serve as tokens of loyalty and remembrance.